Welcome back to another episode of the Brighton Chamber Podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Harris, and today I'm joined by Dan and Anna Oginski, the owners of Brighton Lighthouse and All Heart Garage. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So first off, if you could tell me what the Brighton Lighthouse and All Heart Garage are. They sound interesting. I just don't know what they are.
Sure. Yeah, for those who don't know, Brighton Lighthouse and All Heart Garage are two buildings in the city of Brighton that we built and developed. And together they operate as one campus, and there's space, resources, and community. There's private office space, there's co-warehouse space, there's co-working space, and spaces for meetings and professional events. And then we round that out with a lot of programming that's dedicated to personal well-being and professional development. So altogether, what the Brighton Lighthouse is on Brighton Lake Road, and it's a house that was built in 1860, and we renovated it to turn it into commercial space. And then All Heart Garage is on Rickett Road, and it's a brand new building that we built it to look like a vintage service station. It has a retro garage theme inside, a really cool building. So we built these really what we think are beautiful spaces to be distinctive spaces, but really provide a platform for people to use to get work done, work on building their businesses, or really support their personal health and well-being. And we are proud of that. We have built a space and a platform that people find useful for really serving the whole person, both a combination of giving a place and space for people to work, to pursue their goals and serve their purpose, but also a place to support your personal health and well-being.
So you mentioned health and well-being. What exactly are you guys doing to facilitate those sorts of things, and how is that making a difference in other people's businesses?
And the interesting thing is that the mix of entrepreneurship and business growth with personal health and well-being is almost an extension of who Anna and I, who we are. I'm a little more business entrepreneurship. She's a little more health and well-being. So Anna's really a great curator of health and well-being programming, among other things, but she's way better at describing it. So why don't you do that?
Sure. So in our space at Brighton Lighthouse, we have a functional medicine doctor who works there full-time. That's her office. And then several therapists who also work there. So we have a massage therapist too. And over time, we've had different people doing different things. Right now, there's a reflexologist and a hypnotherapist. So the idea is that people who come to Brighton Lighthouse as clients of them can utilize these great resources right here. And then also people who are members of the community can also see the people. So, you step in and do your work and then see your therapist, get a massage. It's a great model.
So there's therapists and massages that that happen at both places.
Just at Brighton Lighthouse. And then at All Heart Garage, that's where we focus on the space. So there are the co-warehouse spaces. Those are the residents there, and then office space too.
So talking about residencies, what do you mean about that?
So that is someone who rents the space, has a dedicated space on a regular basis, either full-time or 1 day a week or 2 days a week, depending on their needs.
So how do you set that up?
If you're a resident of Brighton Lighthouse, you have your own dedicated office. And it's an annual lease, and you have your own office. We actually do it in a couple different ways. You can be a full-time resident, which means your office space is yours, 24/7 under that annual lease. We also have part-time residents, and so you can make an office yours for 1 day a week or 2 days a week for the whole year. So that's how it happens at Brighton Lighthouse. At All Heart Garage, if you're a resident at All Heart Garage, actually what you get is a dedicated warehouse unit. And those are really built for growing businesses or small businesses that need some warehouse space. Especially if you're growing, you don't need a whole ton of space, but you need some warehouse space mixed with on-site space to work in an office and have meetings with potential clients or prospects or your own meetings. That's largely what All Heart Garage is dedicated to, although there's co-working space at both. And if you're a member, you get to access both spaces and use it as a community membership. So that's how the residents work. I will say at Brighton Lighthouse, the residents we have, not exclusively, but by and large, do tend to be more of our wellness practitioners, like therapists, and Bloom Functional Medicine is a doctor, Ananda Wellness is a therapist. We also have Phil Spoljaric is a financial planner with Raymond James, so that's financial health. So we have a lot of what we think of as health practitioners or well-being practitioners who tend to be residents at Brighton Lighthouse. And kind of speaking about that theme of health and well-being, one thing we're really excited about that's coming up soon is our Women's Wellness Advance, which Anna created. And this is our third year of doing it. We're really excited about it. So I think it'd be cool if you want to talk more about that.
Through my life, we have 3 kids. So between our kids and myself, there have been many times where we've had kind of health challenges to figure out. So I find myself driving to the Detroit area or Ann Arbor or something like that. One thing that's great about Brighton, though, is we have amazing practitioners right here. So the Women's Wellness Advance is a way to call attention to some of those practitioners. So most of them are people who have their offices at Brighton Lighthouse. And then we have someone who is a local psychologist also joining us this year. So it's a day of, it's kind of like a retreat, but we call it an advance in the spirit of moving forward together. So it's a structured day of information covering multiple topics. And we have a beautiful lunch, we have yoga, then we have a kind of a happy hour afterwards, and some local businesses will be coming with pop-up shops. And then we have other practitioners who are part of our holistic networking group who will be there with tables and information. So it's a really fun, beautiful day. And to be honest, it wasn't intended to be just for women, but women are the ones who sign up. And they love it so much they want one for men, but we haven't quite done that yet.
So is that only for members, or can anyone just show up?
Yep, anyone can come. You can register on our website. There's a whole page dedicated to it with the outline of the schedule and the people who will be there. And then you register and come, and it's a really wonderful day.
Sweet. That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So speaking of memberships, are there like different tiers of different memberships? Because I'm kind of picturing like Costco, Sam's Club, where you have to, register for something. But can you tell me about that?
Honestly, when we started, we did have some more variation in our memberships, but I think as, entrepreneurs or business owners ourselves, we're all learning. And one thing I've learned a lot about is keeping things simple as much as you can. So like I said, the residence is where you have your own dedicated space. And that might be office space at Brighton Lighthouse or warehouse space at All Heart Garage. But then you can also be a community member. So if you're a resident, you're on an annual lease, and that's an arrangement exclusive to you. But you can also be a community member, and that means, and we call it that because you have access to both properties, Brighton Lighthouse and All Heart Garage. And you can be a monthly member and pay by month, or you can be an annual member where you sign up for a whole year at a time, and you get a little better pricing on that because you're signing up for the whole year. So basically, among our community members, what's really interesting is I've observed over time the folks who have tended to come to be part of our platform and our community, who are members at Brighton Lighthouse and All Heart Garage. They tend to be entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, people working on, building or growing their business. They tend to be wellness practitioners, and these things overlap to some extent. But I would characterize them as wellness practitioners. Some of them you might characterize as holistics because they might be working on forms of wellness support that are a bit alternative or specific to particular needs. But it's really great. And it creates this mix of business-focused entrepreneurship with other folks focusing on personal health and well-being. We also have a group among our members who I'd characterize as creators, photographers or other people in some respect kind of working on creative content. And then there's another group of folks who are what I call remote workers, meaning that they have a job with a larger organization and they need a place to work, especially if they have, kids or dogs around the house and things that might be some noise in the background or a bit distracting during the business day. Or actually what I hear from a lot of folks is it's really great to have a place. You get all the upside of having an office to go to in terms of outside of your home and a place to see other people without all of the headaches and the politics that go along with, working in an office environment with the rest of your coworkers all the time. And different things appeal to different people, but that has been a really cool aspect to over time to see how different people with different needs come to the space and utilize it to serve their means, especially with folks needing a place to work, When COVID started and we had to, things shut down and be at home more, I remember hearing this phrase. Someone said, when did work from home become living at work? And that's definitely how I feel. As much as I love the comfort of home, I also appreciate having the difference. It's a shift in mindset, having a place I go to work, and you get to see other people and have a little interaction in a professional sense, or in the space where you're working on something, having that be a little more separate from the place where you're, that is your haven and a place to relax. It's nice to have that separation. So I think we provide that for a number of people, and that's really great to see. But yeah, you can either be a resident or a community member, and if you're a community member, you can do it, monthly or buy-in, for the whole year at a time. But the one key thing is, if you're a member, you get to access both spaces. And it's really interesting. We built Brighton Lighthouse it was like a historical renovation, and it's built to look and feel vintage, but have modern functionality. So it looks and feels like the early 1920s when you walk in there, although it's all brand new. But especially with the wellness practitioners who tend to work there a lot, it's also on a 2-acre parcel that we've curated in these really beautiful grounds that alongside Ore Creek. So it's really this beautiful place that has this historic feel and has a real, heart running through it. It definitely has a vibe in that way, whereas All Heart Garage is this place that looks like a vintage service station, has a garage theme to it, is a little more of an office, the way it's set up and the workstations that are set up there. I've seen when people they got to get to the office, they got to focus, they got to get some work done, they tend to go to All Heart Garage. It's a little bit, there's a different vibe there. So what's cool about having the community membership is that depending on what you have to do any particular day or what kind of vibe you're feeling, you can go to either space and get a little bit of something different. Especially Brighton Lighthouse, I would say, tends to be a little more social, given the nature of the work that goes on there. There's more activity going on there. All Heart Garage is a little more quiet, and people are a little more focused, although they're engaging and talking once in a while. So again, it's really, I think it's an interesting benefit of the community membership. Again, depending on what you got to do and what vibe you're vibing for that day, you have lots of choices about where you can go to work.
You mentioned like that whole escape from work with people working from home and not being able to differentiate between like what is work and what is my escape from work. And I feel like because there's been a lot of office spaces before where people can just, go in and rent a space and they go in there and it's just so that they have an address to their business. But I feel like you guys are kind of building a community, or at least like building a space that facilitates that connection with people. And that kind of ties into the whole wellness thing, where you see a lot of people connecting online, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, anything like that. And it's all social media, but it's behind a phone. This seems very like face-to-face and kind of like that normal connection. I say normal. Social media is kind of like the new normal, but it's kind of that social aspect of what I feel like humans are meant to do.
Yeah, I think that is beautiful. I love the way you said that. And just to add, this is more of a logistical thing, but there are a lot of people who start businesses in their homes, and so their dining room gets taken over or their garage gets taken over. And so then what do you do? Like for us, sometimes that can be an argument, like, what is all your stuff doing in the middle of our house? So it creates a space where you can do the work and then keep home separate. And yes, social media and the internet, that's such a great way to connect, but we are humans who crave human connection. So being able to be face-to-face with people is a really important aspect of being human. And I think that that's something that we're really, something we really value in our own lives, and being able to create that space for people is really nice. And seeing them, we have member events almost every month. One of them is this really great member dinner in October, and just seeing people interact, people they would not have met otherwise if we were all sitting in our homes working together. And the connections that are made are really wonderful. And the social media is something I really struggle with, because as humans, it's just not the same when you're on a screen. So we love being able to create that space for people.
And I assume that member dinner isn't very much like the, office Christmas party that no one wants to be at, is just waiting for the day to be over.
Yeah, it's actually a really beautiful event. Jill Reed is one of our members. She's an event coordinator, Reed & Co. events. She plans out the tablescape. This year she did a color theme, so each table had a different color. So we had vegetables and fruits. It was beautiful. And then we have a caterer and bartending, and it's just a really fun event. It's like a fancy dinner party.
And that's Anna's talking about our annual member dinner that we have in October. Mm-hmm. And we I just said doo-doo, so I don't know if you want to edit that or keep it in.
That's a clip.
I hate when I say doo-doo. But we do member events. We've been doing them since we started. But kind of to what you were saying, we're figuring out what actually is value to people or what's helpful. And we're finding that there's only so many member events because people are busy and time of day and people have other responsibilities. What we're finding is we're doing a few member events that are distinctive and particularly appealing to people. Probably the most popular one is the member dinner that we do in October. And we kind of go all out and make it really great the way Anna was describing that. And people love that. We do a jingle and mingle in December. So we do the holiday party, but I think the difference, because I've worked in a corporate environment and I've broken free from that. I think the difference here is that if you're coming to a member event, you're coming to a place that's a mix of people doing different things, not all working on the same thing with you in the same box every day. And you're seeing the same people and just in trying to make it a party. So we have a lot of fun with these member events. We have a family fun day in June where you get to bring the kids if you want. So we're mixing those things up, but we're actually also doing relatively fewer member events because what we're finding is for a lot of people, the building community, I'm a person who I want to accomplish something. I want to make something happen. So let's have this event or let's have this thing to make things happen. But what we're finding is that providing the space and doing a really great job having the space and resources for people to use, when they're in the space, these relationships happen organically. So doing some member events is great, but just providing the space for good things to happen, I think is what we're trying to do a good job at, and we're finding that people build those relationships organically and get a lot out of that. So that's where some of that community comes from, is just being around, being in the space, working on what you're doing, and making connections with other people. Just in the concept of how much, we think, or there's this thought, I don't know how much people really believe in it, but certainly this thought that our devices connect us more and social media connects us more, and it does in some way. But I was actually listening to an episode of Fresh Air not too long ago, and the person on the episode was an author, and I can't remember the name, but he's basically talking about how in the early part of the 20th century, there was a huge trend toward socializing with other people. And then for the last 60 years, there's been a big trend away from that, away from people personally socializing with each other, starting with, guess what, the television. And of course, since then, there's been lots of advances in technology where we are looking at screens a lot more. And that is very helpful in many ways. And it's part of the world we live in and work in. And now we have AI, and, it's helpful to understand how to leverage that to be productive. But there's a consequence to having a relationship with your screen more than other people sometimes. And the author was actually talking about how people are selling a lot of their dopamine to their phones, because there is something about interacting with other people that energizes you. And although looking at your phone looks like a passive activity, there's actually a lot going on internally, both mentally and emotionally, as you're looking at your phone, and it's sapping some of your energy. So then when you go to, hey, I have a chance to go out and see people, maybe I'll just stay at home because I feel a little tired, because you sold your dopamine to your phone is what was being talked about. And that resonated with me. And I think especially post-COVID, we can get in inertia accounts for a lot. You get into a set of habits. Maybe we need to push ourselves a little more to get out and interact with people more again. But Anna's really great about thinking about people in their heart. I'm more, part of the grind. We got work to do. Let's get stuff done. Anna's more, does a great job of focusing on or feeling, I guess, about people in their heart and their state of being. And so she created something that she calls Click Pause. And we have this every, second Friday of the month? Mm-hmm. So every second Friday of the month, we're having a session that people can come to. And it's basically an hour and a half session where the idea is you come there, drop your devices, no laptops, no phones, and come and, it's funny because she created we can do yoga art and yoga nidra. And I'm like, or we could play a board game. Or, I did it last month and I basically spent an hour and a half working on strategic planning, because that's an important thing that always gets crowded out by the urgent. But when you say, look, I'm just giving myself this time to be quiet, you can interact with other people, but time to be without your devices and without those distractions, it's a way of connecting. So we're looking for ways to be an oasis of sorts, and a place where people can be productive, get work done, serve their purpose, but also, be a person and connect with other people in that way. So,
yeah. So I think what I wanted to say is we don't want to add to the noise. We don't want to be another obligation or another thing that you feel like you have to do. So we are very careful and deliberate about the things that we plan, thinking that it's something that would work really well for us. And we put a lot of thought into it to make it a great experience for the people who come. So that I think that's really important too, that we're not just like, oh, let's try this. We're actually really thinking what would be unique or what would add meaning to someone's day. And I think looking at the whole person, like Dan mentioned, is so important, because when we come to work, especially now when we're working, we're more connected 24/7, the news cycle is 24/7, all of that, we're a whole person. So sitting right here, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I have this business. And if you can see me that way, I think it adds to your ability to have more compassion for me as a person. And that just makes a better world all around.
Definitely. I've heard online that there's a lot of, for my generation at least, there's a lack of third places is how I've heard it described. And I would imagine bowling alleys, how retro movies that I'll watch and everyone's hanging out at the bowling alley in the 80s or something like that. And maybe coffee shops or whatever. Maybe my generation's third place is coffee shops. But I feel like there's a lack of that and that connectivity. And I feel like you guys are facilitating that with your spaces that you have. And not to, steal a line from Jason Tracy, but I feel like you guys are definitely difference makers in that regard.
Oh,
so that's exciting.
Thank you.
We love Jason Tracy.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's interesting. I think, there's a lack of third places, but, people also need to make use of their time and their resources. And so I think we try to be a place that is both practical, providing value to people in a practical way, because they have something they're trying to do, something they're trying to accomplish. And we hope to be infrastructure that helps people, that people can use to get to where they're trying to go. So we hope to provide value in a practical way while also providing a space where this community can grow. It helps people connect with other people and with themselves. And again, that kind of goes back to the mix of business and entrepreneurship, but with a heart too, that is focused on the person and supporting well-being. And by the way, Brighton Lighthouse and All Heart Garage are part of a larger enterprise that we created called Hartmonic. The reason it's named Hartmonic is just the idea that when you have a chance to follow your heart, and especially if you have space and resources and infrastructure that helps you do that, and it helps empower you to follow your heart, it makes this wonderful music. It creates a harmony with your spirit. So that's where Hartmonic comes from. So, yep, we're definitely focused on the whole person and hoping to be a space and a community that helps people connect. But we also understand that people don't have the time or the money to not make use of those resources. So it's really important to us that we're serving people in a practical way that provides value. So if I can, I'm just thinking of a couple of examples that I think we're pretty proud of. But just thinking about some of the residents and members who are part of our community. Just in this moment, I was thinking about residents at All Heart Garage. This is less common, but we have this warehouse space on Rickett Road. That's All Heart Garage. The building actually says Hartmonic on it because that's our larger enterprise. People often wonder what that is, but it's a warehouse. And actually that warehouse space, the original inspiration for it, as I was thinking we would have like a classic car club where people could store their cars. But just in the process of building the building, I was hearing from people, small business owners, who needed a little bit of warehouse space. They weren't in a place where they needed a whole big place of their own. They just needed a little bit of warehouse space. So we toggled and divided this warehouse into separate warehouse units that are all lockable so you can have your own space. And they're really built for small growing businesses, especially if you're trying to make the transition out of, filling up your garage or your basement or grandpa's barn. Or if you just have other need for this warehouse space, that's what they're built for, with coming along with it, space to work in an office setting and have meetings. And ATA Residential Solutions was a resident of ours. Now they're a member. So they moved out of a warehouse unit, but we're really excited about it because it's a success story.
They actually moved from 1 to 2, and then they got to the point where they grew into needing their own space.
Yep. So this is
exciting.
Alan and Aaron building this business. They're home builders, and when the warehouse was first opening, they came and looked at it, and they knew this is for them. And they literally talked about having tools and different things in Grandpa's barn, and they were getting this business going. And they moved into the space, like Anna said. Initially had one warehouse unit, then they were growing and moved into 2. And our conference room, we call it the Coupe de Ville room at All Heart Garage. Alan often talks about it as the money room because he when they were having meetings with clients or prospects in that room, he said he closed more deals than they ever had before because it's such a, in his words, a professional setting, a nice place that people came to. And he called it the money room, which I always, I'm proud of that. And so they moved out of their warehouse units, but it's because it's a success story. They grew so much, they were needed to and ready to move into a space. I think it's in Green Oak now, but so they could have a showroom.
I just thought of something that one of our members spent so much time in our Rocket 88 sound booth that he joked about getting a tattoo, a Rocket 88 tattoo, because he got so much work done there.
And then Rustic Hut. The Rustic Hut is a furniture maker, and they make amazing, beautiful pieces, handcrafted wood furniture and other pieces. And again, I think it's Jason and Ashley Hendrickson. Ashley was looking for a warehouse space, asked in some mom's group, I think, if anyone knew anything. And they mentioned All Heart Garage, and they saw it, and they knew it was for them. And they moved in, filled up that space, and they have been growing enough that when ATA moved out, they said, hey, can we move into that double unit? So they have, and they're amazing. Reaching Higher is a nonprofit organization locally that teaches leadership or does leadership classes and coaching and training. And part of what they do is working with high school students, teaching leadership, but they also work with adults. They're amazing folks and a great organization, but they have equipment that goes along with the work that they're doing. So they're a resident there too. So it's a great mix of different things that people do and can do. And what's really cool is to see people utilizing that space. Reaching Higher, they are a resident at All Heart Garage because they have this equipment to store there, but they get a lot of use out of the space really because they do different meetings and trainings that need different kinds of spaces for different things that they're doing. And we have a variety of spaces that they can use, and they bring a lot of energy to the space. So what's really cool to see, again, is the different things that people are doing and working on, coming and making use of the space. And then the way that everyone mixes together, it's a great alchemy of sorts, and the different connections that people make. It's just a really cool part of it.
One thing that is great about Reaching Higher is they use the space at All Heart Garage, and then they also have training and meeting sessions at Brighton Lighthouse. So they're able to use both spaces, and they incorporate the outdoor space into that, their training sessions. So it's neat to see them use the whole breadth of the space.
That's awesome. I imagine that seeing people grow from like a 1-unit facility to going to 2 units. It's almost like a proud parent moment, that you were able to facilitate that in a way. But no, this has been great. But do you guys have anything else that, we haven't touched on that you'd like to bring up?
I think one, just to round out kind of how people use the space, one thing to mention too is that we have space that businesses use for meetings and professional events. There's a couple of local businesses, one of whom has a beautiful headquarters building that they built, but it's always, I think we're finding is even if you have great space you work in for your business day to day, it's nice to get off site and do some meetings off site. So, and that's one thing we'd love to do more of, but businesses use Brighton Lighthouse a lot for business meetings, especially the nature of the space we have. We have this workshop room that can hold, up to 40 people. And depending on the weather, you can open one of the garage doors and let the air in. But it's a great space to use for different purposes. And then the other room in the carriage house at Brighton Lighthouse is the art studio. Anna really drove the decor in that room. And there's big windows that look out to the backyard. And so it feels like a tree house in a way in there. But it's a great artsy space, but businesses love to use that. And there's a great energy in there. So businesses love to use that. And what works really well, I've seen for a lot of people is when they come to do like a day-long or a couple-day offsite meeting because they're doing a strategic retreat or a leadership retreat of some kind, the space works super well for that. That's also cool to see because and you don't have to be a member to do that. And it's great to see people come to the space and make use of it that way.
Right. You don't have to be a member. You can, or a resident, you can buy a day pass and come for the day. We have photography day passes and video day passes for people who want to do those kinds of shoots. And then the meeting space, anyone can rent meeting space.
And I think part of what people find helpful having meetings in our space and doing events is that you're not just renting space. First of all, it's a beautiful, distinctive space that has an energy, and I think people are drawn to that. But in addition to that, you're not just renting the space. You get us helping you work out a good way to use the space. How do you want it set up? We set it up for you, help make sure things are arranged properly, help get you going when your meeting's starting. And for some people, if they need lunch brought in and want us to help them with that, we help arrange those things. So you get, again, it's kind of part of that community. It's not just this, it's really the space is there to use, but a lot of the value is in the community that you become part of. So even if you're a business just using the space for the day to have a meeting, you become part of the community for that day, and we're there to support you to help make it a success.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of how can I help me help you, Right. But
well, it's funny you mentioned that line because I often say to people that our business plan is a combination of the movies Field of Dreams and Jerry Maguire. And
over my head.
I know. He's way too young for
I know.
Might be.
This is a sad reality that I'm getting old enough that my cultural references are getting lost on people. But if nothing else, I don't know if you know this, but you just referenced a line from Jerry Maguire, "Help me help you."
Okay.
So I recommend those 2 movies to you.
Okay. I'll definitely have to check them out because I am pretty into movies. Good. But as far as both these spaces, what site should people look into, whether it's a website, Facebook, Instagram? How can people reach out to you guys to become residents or members or anything like that?
Totally. Check out BrightonLighthouse.com or AllHeartGarage.com, both websites. Tells you more about our community and the spaces. And if you want to join to be a member, just click on the member portal button in the corner. But it gives you information too. You can fill out a form on the website, and it'll shoot us an email, and we can be in touch and happy to help out. We also have a presence on Facebook and Instagram and those platforms too. So you can like those or follow us on those platforms as well. But yeah, the easiest thing to do is go to one of the websites, BrightonLighthouse.com or AllHeartGarage.com.
Sweet. Well, Dan and Anna, it was great to meet you guys, and thanks for coming into the studio today. And that about wraps up this episode. We'll catch you on the next one.